6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Squad. This is Katie Weaver. I'm here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey everybody.
How's it going?
It is good. I am relieved.
Oh, me too.
I'm so ready for this to be done. I don't
Mhm.
really want to have to listen to that woman's voice anymore.
Also, there has been some shit going down this week in other crime that we so want to talk about, and where we
I
are,
know.
we're still stuck on Lori, but that's all right. We're
It's okay.
really getting there. What a day.
Yeah, quite a day.
What you drinking? I actually mixed a drink tonight. I really
It's
did. I've had
literally
enough.
lemonade.
Oh, an aviation.
I had a migraine this morning, so no alcohol for me.
No booze for you. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Well, I also have a big water.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yes, what a day it was. So we knew that the state was going to rest today after Agent Balance. We also knew that Agent Balance was going to be shown off camera because he is undercover, which is really too bad because if you've seen Agent Balance, you wanted to see him again.
Mm-hmm.
But you did get to hear that beautiful voice. So I guess you got something out of it.
Yeah.
But let's start with the nonsense she has already done. And that would be she filed another filing to try to remove the judge, but that wasn't enough for her. She's also mad at the judge who wouldn't let her remove Judge Boreski, Jennifer Green. And so she went ahead and filed to remove both of them.
She said to the judge, I want to speak to your manager.
She did. She's
and
having
then she
quite
tried to
the
get
fit.
the manager fired too.
The filing is really, really difficult. It's handwritten. It's really light. Her handwriting is really tough.
Crayon or light yellow pencil or something. It's terrible.
It's really bad. I have it, and I'll show you guys what it looks like so that you can see how bad it is. I blew it up a few different ways, darkened it the best ways I could. I found somebody else that darkened it. I still can't really read it very well, but I'll give you the gist of it anyway. If I can get back to my notes here, and I'll show you a little bit of what it looks like. Oh, maybe I won't. All right, well, never mind. I thought I had it right here at my fingertips. Apparently I don't.
I do.
Oh, share it, and I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
They essentially,
Here we go.
she says that the judge was mean to her, guys. He drug her into court while she was feeling unwell and in pain. The judge frightened her when he threw her out of court.
Let's see.
This court is completely incapable of being impartial to her. And she needs a new judge, and they need a new judge above him, too.
Yeah. Fuck you and fuck your boss.
Yes. So, obviously, that couldn't go to Judge Green because Judge Green was named. So it went to Judge Kevin Wayne. And Kevin Wayne said, bye-bye. He said, that's just not going to work out.
Yeah.
Part of it was a file to dismiss due to abuse of discretion. Yeah. One of the things he reminded her of in his filing was, as you know, per Arizona law, you cannot remove a judge in the middle of a trial. So, no.
Mm-hmm.
And
you've already tried to do this.
Over and over, and also, no. So, it's just not even going to work out for Miss Vallow. She's never going to remove the judge. Now it's over, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not going to work out. She also wanted to have a letter from the forensic evidence gatherer who was unable to testify due to her own legal issues.
Yes.
And put it on the record, whatever.
Basically, just for appellate purposes.
Yeah. She's just doing a lot of, Lori style lawyering. But it is insane. Are we going to see yet another filing tomorrow to try to remove the judge?
Oh, probably. She's going to take every shot she
She
can take, I think.
going to try and get a different judge for sentencing? I mean, is this just never going to end?
Well, it will. Pretty darn soon. It's going to end. It's going
It's
to
got to
end
end.
forever.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go back to the Pocatello Women's Prison.
Mm-hmm.
Well, forever. And
Forever.
okay, great.
You can
That's
be
a good
mad
place
at
for you.
whatever judge you want to, but you're still leaving.
Yeah. I guess
So-
she'll try this stuff on her appellate judges, but no, she
will.
won't, because she's got attorneys. She's got attorneys for that, and
Yeah.
no, she won't.
I don't think you can be pro per for appeals. Is that correct? Maybe you can.
I don't know, but I do know that she has an appeals attorney in Idaho, so
Yeah.
she's not trying that here.
True. I think this was mostly just for the attention factor anyway, so
Oh,
probably
100%. This was
But-
just her chance to get the limelight and a few digs into the people she doesn't like before she goes away forever.
not. Pretty much, yes. Hermosillo was in the audience today. I wondered how much that addled her, as well as a lot of other people that she doesn't want to have to see. They're all there staring at the back of her gross head. We had a
Yeah.
listener in court today. Oh, Denise says she cannot be pro per for appeals. That's what I thought, but yeah, you never know.
Right.
One of our listeners was in the crowd today in the audience, and she said that the back of her hair is just a big snarled mess. It looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does.
So let's get into it. So, as you know, we were, of course, starting out with Nicholas Balance on the stand. So he's a special agent with the FBI. He's in the Salt Lake Division, but he works out of Boise. He works on the CAST team. If you guys remember Chad's trial,
Yeah.
Pryor went head to head with Balance. Well, tried to until.
Yeah.
Remember, they were super mad that they don't have the same equipment or can't buy the same equipment, only
The cell phone, Cellbrite.
the cell phone,
Stuff.
well, the CAST, the vehicle thing, and oh my gosh.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't that whiny today, but he's the one who helps to analyze the cellular towers and data to get a good sense of where phones were at any given time. He's also worked on cell records for the U.S. Marshals. He's very, very well trained and has a ton of experience.
And very smart.
Yes, he talked about, his continuing education, all of the things that he's worked on and done. He was asked to analyze the track phone and other phones belonging to Lori and Alex. As you recall, they had a whole bunch of phones.
Right. Like 9 phones or something.
Something like that, yeah. They just kept picking up new phones. Only Alex, as you know, didn't understand the meaning of burner phone and immediately went and put his email address in the phone. So
Homer J. Maximus strikes again.
Yet again, thanks for being an idiot, Alex.
Mhm.
Somebody in the chat earlier while we were watching wanted to know if they think that Lori slips into the portal every night to yell at Alex about how stupid he is. I think so. I think that tracks, yes.
There were many times in this trial that, I was thinking the same thing.
She was probably like, I could just kill you all over again for all this stuff, Alex. Yeah. So they bring in a presentation prepared by Balance, which is what we expected because this is exactly what's happened in the other 2 trials with him, showing the location history of all of the devices. So he was looking at info from September 23rd, 2019 through October 3rd, 2019. As you know, he was looking at info for a lot broader scope than that, but that's what they were narrowed into for this trial. Yes, he was looking at the bingings, Raki, correct. All of those bingings.
The bingings.
Mm-hmm. So he talks about how they analyze data. Some of this gets so boring and technical. I think a lot of it is pretty tedious, but it's stuff that the jurors need to know. The jurors, according to people in the courtroom, were very intent. They were taking notes. They were really soaking up what he was saying. So that's excellent.
Good.
They talk about the difference between collecting cell phone data versus gathering Google data. They talk about the Homer J. Maximus account being found on the Verizon network. He had a TracFone, and TracFone is owned by Verizon.
Mhm.
So We talk about, him purchasing the phone on September 25th at 7:10 p.m. We talk about the Google location history of the Walmart where the phone is, first activated. We see a cell phone tower interaction with the Arizona number associated with Lori, and that phone receives 2 calls from Lori on September 25th at 7:08.
Yeah, and guess whose phone was also in the Walmart on Utah here in Idaho Falls? Lori's.
Lori
Who was
as
with
well.
him when he bought his burner phone.
Yes. Because she's not involved in a conspiracy. At the time, Lori's phone, while they were there, got an incoming call from guess who? Melanie Boudreaux.
Yeah.
Also using a cell phone tower in Idaho Falls.
Sandy is on the other chair in here. I know people are like, "Where's Sandy?" She's on another chair over here. She'll show up at some point. She's pretty good for that.
Then we see the track phone making a call that connects to a cell phone tower by Lori and Alex's apartment on September 26th at 11:31 p.m. Then we see the phone associated with the Homer J. Maximus account at Alex's apartment. On September 30th, we see it at his apartment at 4:32 p.m. By 4:36, he is near Lori's apartment. On September 30th at 4:38 until 11:59, he's at Lori's apartment. The phone does not go back to his apartment. Which I think it's a little bit confusing because one thing we learned yesterday is that the apartment that Lori was living in was actually rented to Alex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they've always referred to that as Lori's apartment, and it seems like they're still referring to that as Lori's apartment, but that was actually rented by Alex. Why did they flip-flop? Or did she just like that one better?
I don't know, because the other one was empty. Yeah. When they did their search warrant in November, the apartment 107 that was the one that was actually rented to Lori was empty.
Yeah.
It was like it was just for show.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. So then we know that between September 30th and October 1st, the track phone moves from Rexburg to Arizona. We know the phone that traveled from Idaho to Arizona calls Chad at 9:19 a.m. on October 1st, which would have been 8:18 a.m., I believe, here in Idaho. Trina shows a slide of Alex's Homer J. Maximus account in Idaho at the same time that the track phone is in Arizona, which is when, Lori's using his phone to try to make some little phone calls to his phone, side by side to try and establish an alibi. Right. Lori, two things. Obviously, you didn't make sure he knew what a burner phone was, clearly, because no. But also, one of those phones should have been on the other side of town or something. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
Side by side on the phone together? Yeah. Right. The apartment for Lori was probably so her and Chad could be one big happy family. Yeah.
I have figured that at some point maybe that was the plan before everything went to hell.
All right. Then she asks Balance if he's aware of the storage unit. He says that he is. He shows a map of the places that Alex's phone was at the storage unit on October 1st between 3 p.m. and 3:36 Idaho time. Weird. It's almost as if it was with Lori.
Strange.
At 2:24 Arizona time, the phone associated with Melanie calls Lori's phone. Alex's phone still in the area of the storage unit. Then they start looking at a map of the track phone activity in Arizona on October 2nd from 7:02 to 7:20 a.m. It shows the movements of the track phone around the Phoenix area. It shows different towers that are picking up its activities. And guess where it ends up? In front of Brandon Boudreaux's house. Weird.
What a coinkydink.
Back in Idaho on October 2nd at 8:02 a.m. Arizona time, an outbound call is made from Lori's phone to Alex's, and the call is around 23 minutes. So they literally are setting up these calls and stuff while they're committing the crime in Arizona.
Yeah.
You know what that is, Lori? It looks like a conspiracy.
It sure does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't look like an alibi. That looks like a conspiracy, dum-dum.
Mm-hmm. Okay, at the same time, the Walmart track phone is using towers in Gilbert, Arizona. Alex's device in Rexburg does not move from Lori's apartment that day, and it never goes back to his apartment. Lori's taking some notes from people in the audience, taking a lot of notes, but, you know, anyway. You could tell because she was very confused when she crossed him, but she obviously had no idea.
Yeah.
But
she thought she had some gotchas that they were not.
no. The phone associated to Chad made 3 outgoing calls to the track phone in Arizona between 8:39 and 9:16. The shooting at Brandon occurred at 9:13. So they were building him up, getting him going, making sure he was
doing an extra
the
blessing
thing.
or two, probably.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would imagine praying with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. All of the things. I mean, do you think Alex was nervous? That he felt bad about this? That he had cold feet? Or he just had Chad on the phone assuring him, that, and Lori too, that he was doing God's work here?
No, this was the right thing. Because, like, he knew Brandon. He knew Brandon for years.
Right.
Like,
right.
This wasn't a stranger to him, but I mean, I guess he killed Charles pretty quickly too, so.
That's true. Also, you got to know that at this time, Chad was still married to Tammy. Tammy was still living.
Yeah.
Tammy was, probably at work that day. Well, Chad was
probably
doing this shit. That tracks
Yeah.
for Chad.
Because that does track for Chad.
Mm-hmm. Really wish Chad would have been on the stand. That's all. The next map shows the track phone moved from near Brandon's house, southwest of the area between 9:17 and 9:23. The track phone calls Chad at 9:22. So after the shooting, he called Chad as he was pulling out of there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we know the other phone was at Lori's apartment. It never moved from her apartment from September 30th to October 2nd. Then from 8:50 to 9:46 Arizona time, Lori has 5 calls. Before the shooting, there's an outgoing call to Chad. Another outgoing Chad to Melanie for 35 minutes. Don't tell me Melanie didn't know what was going on. Just don't.
Right. Of course.
Then an incoming call, a 2-minute call from Chad while Lori is on the phone with Melanie. Then a little break. And then at 9:44 to 9:45, another call from Chad. There's just a flurry of activity between all of them.
Yeah, they're all checking in. Because, remember, somebody said, was Melanie with Lori? No, Melanie was at home because she had picked up the baby from him, from Brandon that morning.
No, he'd given the baby to her.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. She'd picked up the baby from him. Yeah. But she certainly, why the flurry of phone calls? Like, she knew.
Right in that time frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on October 2nd, between 1:22 and 8:13, the track phone uses towers from Phoenix moving towards Utah, as we know.
Yeah.
On October 3rd at 2019, Alex's phone, not the track phone, but his regular phone, is in the area of the self-storage place. When they go back to get the tire and the seat.
They stored it for 24 whole hours for some reason.
On October 3rd, between 2:20 and 2:22, Lori's phone gets a call from Chad's phone. After October 2nd, the track phone is never used again.
Yeah.
That was it. They called it. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. This was all right, Susie. This was happening right after they killed JJ. JJ died, I believe, on the 23rd. And then they were immediately out, tinting the windows of the Jeep on the 25th, buying the track phone, just very efficiently in their minds, I guess, just moving on to the next phase of their bullshit, which was Brandon.
Going down the list.
So that was all the state had. And then Lori actually questions balance. I wondered if she would, because a lot of times when it gets to be more techie, she doesn't. Just she has a couple of questions, Your Honor. You know,
all breathy,
the baby breathy voice.
Yeah, so gross.
The many voices of Lori is really fascinating. Someday, if I have the energy, maybe we'll make a bunch of clips and hear the different phases of her voice. But anyway, so she's acts like she's trying to understand the Googs, and how all of this works with Google and with the cell phone towers. She says, let's say you have 3 phones associated to your Gmail account and all of your locations are on. What would it be tracking? He says the columns have device tags and they differentiate each individual device. You can filter out devices because basically she's trying to say, well, if your iPad is at home and you are at Walmart and whatever, you have another device somewhere else, how can you know where someone really is? And he's like, well, we can sort that stuff out.
Right.
Yeah.
They can see where all the devices are.
Mm-hmm.
Dum-dum.
Yeah. Now this one gets me. I laughed so hard when I heard this. She asks Balance if he got his information from Google. He says those records were obtained. They got them from the Rexburg police got them. And if you remember what it's like for them to subpoena from Google, it's a multi-layer subpoena.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. You don't just do it overnight. It takes some time. You really have to prove it. You have to have many judges' signatures. But the Rexburg police had done that. She wants to know how he got those records. He says he thinks he got it from email. She acted skeptical because those would be large files. He said there are options to electronically send large files. She wants to know, again, if he got the files from email, and he says yes, like he already said. She wants to know who sent the files. He's not sure. She wants to know how he knows they were authentic. He says he was mapping records as he received them. In other words, he's cross-referencing what he's received from different carriers, like from Verizon and from Google. She says, is there a way to know they were altered before he got the files? She already tried this in this trial, trying to implicate Google for altering the files before he receives them.
It's a vast conspiracy. Vast.
Yeah. Google's in
Robert
on it too.
Tejas level.
Yes.
Vast.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody gives a flying fuck about you, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Everyone's trying to implicate you from your family tragedies.
Yeah.
No. She wanted to know if it's typical for people to have their email associated with multiple devices. Thinking about Homer J. Maximus. He says in this day and age, yes. It just depends on the person. But it's not unusual. She says you can't pinpoint where a person is. She did a fair amount of testifying, I thought, and got away with some of it, but she also tried to make him say lots of things he wasn't willing to say. Yeah. He says you can track the device, not the person. Lori says if you have a track phone and anyone else had it, it would look like you were in that place. He says for him, the device would report the location information, and that's the data that he would collect. So he's just not going to bite on that.
Right.
She wants to know about October 3rd at 2:15, when a device was at Self Storage Plus. She asks if that was the track phone. He says no, it was Alex's other device. She asks if the track phone ever gave a location in Rexburg after October 3rd. He says no. She asks when the last time it did. The last time it pinged, or binged if you will, it was October 2nd in Utah in the evening hours, somewhere around Salt Lake.
Yeah.
That must have been... I have wonderings about that. Is that the point that Alex just turned it off? Is that the point that he had his last phone call with Lori and just tossed it? Right.
Didn't need any more maps help to get from Salt Lake. He knew how to get back to Rexburg from there, maybe.
This was just the murder phone. That's all he needed it for. And once it was done, it was done.
Yeah.
Oh, she asked some technical questions. The more technical questions she asked, the more confused she got. And I think the jury was probably getting confused too, but maybe not. They're definitively not as stupid as she is. The jury's smart. They were taking notes and trying to understand. She wants to know about the night her phone was in Idaho Falls and Alex's was at Walmart in Idaho Falls. She wanted to know if the phones could connect to Walmart's Wi-Fi. He says it doesn't need to connect to the Wi-Fi because these phones obviously are connected to their carrier. She asked if they have the ability to track someone walking around Walmart. He said you potentially could. She said if you don't have your location on, I kind of felt like she was planning her next crime here. She said if you don't have your location on, are you able to track where things are, or is it only if you connect to Wi-Fi? And he says it just depends on the phone and your app. One of the things that he stressed, and I think it's important for all of us to know, because the cell phone privacy stuff I think is a little bit scary. You know, I mean, I'm glad when we have this kind of stuff go down, but at the same time, like, you also are being tracked on your phone at every moment, you know, but don't commit crimes, that's all. But at any rate, the point that I think he was trying to make with that, or what he was trying to make, sorry, is that it depends on what apps are on your phone. And you guys think about how many apps are on your phone and how many of those apps asked you to use your location.
Right. Tons of them.
And so you might think that you have turned off all of the location on your phone, and maybe you haven't because you still have apps that you allowed to use your location. Like, it's a big, I think that's a big pit. And a lot of his questions for her, or her answers for her were kind of like that. Well, it depends. Depends on the phone, depends on the user, depends on the app. Right. You know, sounds like most things are possible at this point. She says if a phone is static and not moving, will it report anything? He said that depends. It may not report as much as a moving phone. The phone must be on, and Google location history must be activated, if we're talking about Google. He says if there isn't a location record, he can't map it. And Lori has nothing further for him. Again, it kind of felt like she was asking questions like, so hypothetically, if I was going to kill Night Eaton, you know,
right?
Whoever she'd like to knock down next, you won't, Lori, because you're never getting out, and that's all set. But I've wondered about that. The way she was asking him questions just kind of kept feeling to me like, this feels less like this trial and more like you need to know on a personal basis.
Right. There were several times in this trial that I felt like that like with the license plate readers. Oh, you can trick those, huh? Really?
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, you're never going to have a chance again, dum-dum.
Yeah. So
let me answer this. Yeah. Let me answer this really quick from Journey to Justice. Why did Alex want to go to the airport on his way to Idaho? He didn't. Here's the thing. The Idaho Falls Airport is right at the junction from I-15 to Highway 20, where you get off I-15 and get on Highway 20 to go to Rexburg.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to the airport. It was just taking him to that junction.
Yeah.
So he would know when to get off I-15 and on to Highway 20. That would take him straight to Rexburg.
Yeah. Yep. That was a little confusing, but yeah, that is exactly.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think he was going to the actual airport. I was just thinking about like that's just the right junction to turn off. Yeah.
So the state comes back up on redirect. She asks about the Homer J. Maximus account logged into the track phone. She just asks a few more clarifying questions about the cell phone activity in Walmart and around Idaho Falls, and that's it. And he's excused. So he sends the jury out to lunch and finally pins Lori down about, what are you going to do? And she says, yeah, she's not going to call any witnesses. She's not going to testify. She's going to rest. So they go over jury instructions. You know, that's fairly tedious, but they do that. But you know, it's important stuff. Don't let me downplay that. Very important stuff. And they hammered out some things. Then they go to lunch. And after lunch, Lori comes back in to read her Rule 20 motion. This is always done, of course. This is the defense's last chance to say, the state hasn't proven their case. They have not come here what they did to do. They have not met the burden of proof. We want you to just throw this out right now and not even go to the jury. That's the judge's last chance to do something like that. It just almost never happens.
No, it's real.
Though I'm pretty sure that's what happened in the case of Sarah Turney's dad.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happened in his case.
However, it's rare, but of course they're going to ask, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Lori she does her little dog and pony show about how they haven't proved anything. They've shown me at a storage unit, and they showed me having Alex's phone in my possession or something. They haven't proved anything.
She left out a lot of somethings.
Yeah. You know, it's actually very little that she says. She says there's some Google searches, storage unit. That's not substantial evidence. It doesn't prove anything. So then, of course, the state comes back and says, yeah, no, there was all of this evidence that she rolls out, and that's why we think we have proven our burden. And the judge says, yeah. He said, the state has presented a compelling case that Alex traveled to Gilbert in an attempt to kill Brandon. He says there's other evidence that shows Lori was aware of Alex's plans. He denies her request. Absolutely expected. One other thing that happened when they came back from lunch is that 2 people were removed from the courtroom, and they were all admonished by the judge that they may not be taking pictures in the courtroom. There was an allegation that some people were taking pictures of Nicholas Balance.
Oh, God.
And if you did
I hope not.
You suck.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they confiscated their devices. Why would you do that?
Right.
My hell. Ugh.
I'm here to tell you, Judge Boyce, he would have taken you to the train station, man.
He would have, yes.
You
he
cannot
almost
do
had
that.
you taken to the train station in Fremont County one time.
For tweeting. Judge Boyce still. I was tweeting. I promise. I was only tweeting.
Right.
So all of that went down. Then they finally bring the jury back in so that Lori can rest in front of the jury. That's required. So she rests. They give the jury instructions. Then they go through the jury instructions. I'm not going to do that with you guys because, good Lord, you can imagine what it sounded like. The judge.
It's just basically about how, they have to be able to prove a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course that they need to pick a 4-person and that they're going to deliberate, that they all have to be in the same room together to deliberate it all, and just the basic jury stuff. We've all heard it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
They can't research the case, all the things we know. So then Prosecutor Kay comes up to the PowerPoint, or the podium, and has a PowerPoint ready. And her first line is, "Who would want to kill you?" And then she paused. I thought that was excellent.
It was.
That is the question Officer Marianne Robb asked Brandon when she first arrived. That's the question Detective Pillar asked Brandon. And he gave them 2 names, Lori Vallow, the woman seated right over there, and Alexander Cox. She goes through the whole story. She actually shared the video of the ring cam of the neighbor so that you could hear the gunshot. She was awesome.
She was.
We're going to watch a little bit of that. Then we're going to watch Lori, and then we're going to watch Prosecutor Kay come back with her second set of comments. So let's do that now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the crime. The conspiracy to commit first-degree murder requires that the defendant on or about October 2nd, 2019, with the intent to promote or aid in the commission of first-degree murder, agreed with Alexander Cox that at least one of them or another would engage in conduct that constituted first-degree murder. I'm going to go through a few things, then I'm going to talk about them all together, because these jury instructions really have to be considered as one. So conspiracy. When we're talking about conspiracy, we're talking about the defendant agreeing with Alex Cox and others to engage in that conduct, first-degree murder. That she had to intend to promote or assist, and that's going to be very important here, in the commission of that conduct. She doesn't have to be the shooter, she has to promote or assist it. And that the intended conduct would constitute the crime of first-degree murder. Again, doesn't have to be completed. That's why it's conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Proof of the membership. You're told that one may become a member of a conspiracy without knowing every detail. She doesn't have to know how long Alex is waiting there, what type of bullets he's going to use. The evidence must show beyond a reasonable doubt that the conspiracy was knowingly formed and that the defendant or other persons participated in the unlawful plan with the intent to promote or assist the carrying out of the conspiracy. In determining whether a conspiracy exists, you should consider the actions and statements of all of the alleged participants. So you're going to have to look at everything and look at what this defendant did to promote or assist that conspiracy. So, first-degree murder. Again, I'm going to just note that conspiracy means the parties agreed to engage in that conduct, so it doesn't mean there has to be a death. They are conspiring to kill someone. So we know that someone shot at Brandon Boudreaux and came very close to causing his death. They have to intend or knew that he or she would cause the death of another person, which when you are shooting at them with a rifle, that is what you are intending or knowing, and they acted with premeditation. Talk about premeditation and we'll wrap it all together to discuss. So premeditation means that they intended to kill another person and that they formed an intent or knowledge and then reflected on it. Now, in Arizona, premeditation does not require some long drawn-out plan. Reflection can be very fast. But in this case, we have premeditation that is days and weeks before this. We're talking about September 23rd, 24th, 25th, all the way through up to October 2nd. So this premeditation is above and beyond what is required by the law. This defendant started helping when they went to buy that burner phone, when she loaned her Jeep to allow it to be tinted, when she Googled how to remove that rear seat, and they took off the tire, and she kept it with her. Then she rented a storage unit and put it in there. When she kept her brother's cell phone and kept it with her as she went around Idaho. And when she made that call between those two phones, right around the time of when the shooting was supposed to occur. That is the aiding and the promoting done by this defendant. That is her acts. That is the conspiracy. But again, you look at all of the evidence to see how does that fit in. It's not just someone holding someone's phone. If that were it, sure, you might wonder what's going on. But you can't look at these facts simple and separate. You have to look at the actions of everyone and see how that fits in with all the evidence in this case. This defendant didn't just go buy a phone at Walmart and that was that. This defendant didn't just rent a storage unit and put her own personal property in there. This defendant didn't just decide to loan her Jeep to her brother and then decide to take the rear tire off it and the interior seat out of it. She did all of these things to aid and promote this first-degree murder. When we're talking about defenses in this case, there are potential ones we'll talk about. You've heard in this trial that maybe there was no shooting. There's not even a first-degree murder because I believe there were some thoughts about that the hole in his car was made by a tire iron or whatever other defenses there were. But what do we know? Yes, there's a shooting here. Brandon's car has a bullet hole in it. There are fragments from that bullet hole in there. There's damage to his glass consistent with that location of the bullet hole in his car. Brandon called 911 out of breath from the fear of having just been shot when that bullet hit the frame of his car right near his head and shattered that window next to him. The Ring camera and that gunshot that you heard. Robert Abitamarco putting the Jeep there is idling there. So, is that a defense? No. There was a shooting. So what else? We've heard something about Melanie doing it. She had a financial motive. And I'm not here to tell you that Melanie wasn't involved in this. I'm telling you that this defendant was also involved in this. When we talk about a conspiracy to commit murder, there can be multiple people involved in that conspiracy. There were multiple people involved in that conspiracy. Melanie Boudreaux is the only one that had the address. So, yes, she was involved. But was she it? No. This defendant helped ensure that her brother could help Melanie by killing off her soon-to-be ex-husband, by loaning him the Jeep, by helping make the Jeep available and accessible to fire out of, removing that rear tire, removing the seat, allowing him to put the dark tint on it, and taking it with him. And then providing that alibi over those days while he was gone to help cover up that he was the shooter. I think she also said maybe she's not responsible for what her brother has done. But we know she is responsible. She is a co-conspirator. She is assisting, she is promoting in this crime. We know from the 25th on, she is helping to get the phone, to get ready, to make the Jeep ready, to cover up for her brother, to hide those extra parts, to Google how to even get the Jeep ready, and eventually also trying to figure out what went wrong so they could then determine what to do after. Brandon Boudreaux knew who was involved. He may not have seen who did this. The defendant has tried to explain away the evidence and questioning witnesses, asking if it's possible for a single piece of evidence to mean something other than what everyone knows it means. Is it possible that a Coke bottle broke in the street and one little shard stayed there right where Brandon Boudreaux's Tesla was located when it was shot? A shard that looks just like the glass from his car in the driveway inside the seats. Is it possible that a tire iron made that bullet hole in the Tesla? Is it possible that the GSR in the Jeep is hairspray and fireworks? Is it possible that a Jeep with Texas plates belonged to someone else who wanted to kill Brandon? Is it possible that Alex was in Idaho and called her on October 2nd at 8:02 for those 24 minutes? Don't fall for the defendant's questions about what is possible when the evidence shows exactly what occurred. The only explanation when we look at all of the evidence together is that this defendant conspired with her brother and others to try to kill Brandon Boudreaux. The state asks you to look at all of the evidence, not just the is it possibles, and find the defendant guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
All right, the defense can give its closing.
Take just a minute here to get your punching pillows, gird your loins for this dumb bee, because you are not going to believe the shit she says.
It's worse than ever, yeah.
And you can keep a running total if you want, but I'll just tell you now. 10 objections.
Yep.
10.
Yep.
Argument.
When a family breaks apart, it is a tragedy, with the devastation far-reaching, affecting many people. I am not exempt from tragedy, none of us are. But what we learn from it is most important. Because of this experience, I've studied the law and the judicial system, and that knowledge will stay with me forever. When we experience tragedy, we can grow stronger from the experiences, and then those experiences are not all negative. You would think that often people in my position would feel defensive or angry. And from where I'm standing, I understand that very well. But I don't feel any of those things. You have watched me under pressure, under scrutiny, and even under attack. And I have shown you that I'm not on any of those things.
I'm going to object to character evidence and testimony that's not in evidence.
Ms. Daybell, can I have you pull that microphone a little closer, please?
You can't be upset with people who are forced to look at your life from a distance or judge it through a lens that's being intentionally distorted or being at least very limited. Like the lens the state has shown you on this event. There's so much more going on that is not included to your view. The law prevents some of these things from being shared
I'm
in
going to
trial.
object, Your Honor, to improper.
Sustained.
You have seen opinions formed by strangers trying to put together a narrative. I have shown you that basically there is no defense to what a person did not do or did not participate.
As one.
Shit,
A
sorry.
conspiracy. Over time, the defendant did two presentations. This defendant, her Jeep.
There is no defense
There it is.
to what a person did not do or did not participate in.
You could have stopped
Other
with
than
there
what
is
you've
no
seen,
defense.
which is no evidence that I made an agreement to commit a crime, because no such evidence exists. So I'm not defensive. I'm not angry. Nobody has all the pieces to this puzzle. It is complex. Like most families, this is a complex issue. And like the state, I was not there. But there is no agreement, no plan, no game. I am no stranger to tragedy. The breaking up of a family is tragedy. On June 25th, 2019, Brandon Boudreaux decided that I was responsible for his family tragedy. And I'm really sorry that he feels that way.
No, Your Honor, I'm going to object again to testimony.
All right. The jury is reminded that what is said in closing statements or closing arguments is not evidence. It is not testimony. The intent of the closing argument is for each side to argue what the evidence shows. Go ahead.
I did and have supported my niece Melanie when she suffered tragedy as a young child and during this terribly difficult time in 2019. We read the text from Brandon to me on June 25th, 2019, where he claims that he will never stop until he proves that I am responsible. Well, here we are, almost 6 years later, and I'm charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make an agreement to commit a crime. There is no such agreement between me and my brother Alex, although I did love my brother Alex.
And I'm going to object again, Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was shown to you between myself and Melanie Boudreaux, although I love Melanie.
And I'm going to object again to testifying.
Sustained.
I cannot tell you what happened that day on October 2nd, 2019, because I was not there.
And I'm going to again object to testifying, and please strike everything the defendant has said.
All right. The defendant is.
I agree. Strike it all. Just toss it all out. What a bunch of nonsense.
And then strike her. Where's that baseball bat from Sarah Boone's trial?
Can you even with how easily she lies about this stuff?
Oh my God, it's terrifying.
It is really something. It's almost like she believes it. Almost.
Mm-hmm.
Admonished, you cannot argue things that were not admitted into evidence.
The prosecutor wasn't there. Law enforcement wasn't there. Only Brandon knows what happened before he called 911. Only Brandon said he will not stop. The fact that I supported Melanie in her time of need does not make me against Brandon. I had nothing to gain by Brandon being hurt. Brandon has worked with law enforcement for almost 6 years to make sure that I pay a consequence.
I'm going to object to misstating the evidence.
Sustained. The jury will determine what the evidence did and did not show.
Your job is to determine if I committed a crime. This crime. A conspiracy, an agreement, not cleaning out a garage, but an agreement to commit murder. You did not see an agreement. You did not hear an agreement. You heard Detective Duncan say that he had spent hundreds of hours going over my iCloud accounts. They have 19 years of my accounts, text messages,
And I'm going to
calls.
object to misstates the evidence and no.
If there was an agreement.
Hold on. The objection sustained. The jury is reminded that they will determine what the evidence did and did not show. Go ahead.
So do you think at this point the jury, I mean, you got to go look at it both ways. Is the jury going, please stop with all the objections, I want to hear what she says? Or are they going, okay, from what I'm getting from the state and the judge, everything she's saying right now is a bunch of bullshit?
Right.
Maybe some of both?
Maybe some of both. But the constant alluding to other cases, longer investigations, that's got to be, they've got to be so curious about that.
Also, Brandon was very likable. He was very believable. He was very sincere. He was truly heartbroken.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many of them go, I was kind of on Team Brandon from the beginning, and you're over here trying to tell me that only Brandon knows and insinuate that maybe Brandon did something wrong. I wonder if that really turns sour for some of the jury members, but we'll keep going.
I would imagine. And yes, 19 years of the accounts, that's not true.
No, that's nonsense.
Yeah, she just makes shit up.
If there was an agreement, they would have showed it to you. There is no agreement. We've all experienced tragedies in our lives, and naturally people want someone to blame, someone to pay a price. My brother is no longer here. We can't ask him about that day. There were things presented in this case that I did not know.
And I'm going to object again to testifying, Your Honor, and ask to strike.
Sustained.
Things that I saw, I thought.
And again, I'm going to already ask to strike.
All right. The defendant cannot testify to things that were not testified to from the witness stand.
Because this is the theory the prosecutor wants you to see, it is limited. How can we say clearly when the law only allows for a skewed view of things? The devastation this family has gone through is the tragedy. After almost 6 years, it's time for healing. Thank you.
Every time I think I couldn't hate her enough.
Shit, man. Time for healing. Yeah. For all of us, for everyone who's ever had to hear your stupid fucking voice when you go back to prison forever. That's when the healing begins. When none of your family members have to show up and testify in court ever again against you for the shit you've done. Like, how
when Brandon
disgusting.
doesn't have to come and sit through this again.
Yeah.
When your son doesn't have to come and sit through this again. That is family healing. And you know what's funny, Lori?
And Kay.
They've all formed a
Larry.
family aside from you.
Yeah.
Colby and Brandon and Kay and her family.
Yeah.
They've all, and Tammy's family, they've all formed a little family out of trauma because of what you did.
Right.
This is so maddening and infuriating. But I really believe
Just
that the jury is
disgusting.
going, she's so full of shit, you know?
Yeah.
You cannot look at the evidence that came through here. You cannot listen to Brandon and then listen to this shit. Though I would, if I were them, I would really be wanting to know, where's Melanie's charges?
Yeah. Where is
I
Melanie?
really
Why
wanna
have we
know.
not seen her? Yeah.
I'd also want to know where are Chad's charges. I'd be curious about that too. But
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
so carry on, Prosecutor Kay.
State wish to give a rebuttal, please.
Thank you.
All right, the state has the
Bet we
burden to
do.
prove the defendant guilty, and since they have that burden, they have the right to open and close the argument. Go ahead.
The defendant wants you to think that Brandon has it out for her. She has tried to insinuate that Brandon was involved with working with Detective Pillar for years just to get her. But what you heard was that Brandon has actually been working with law enforcement on multiple investigations, and that in fact Melanie Boudreaux is a subject of multiple investigations. So again, as the defendant sits up here and tries to portray and paint a picture for you of her innocence and sadness and family tragedy, she again misrepresents what was told to you at trial. She tells you there was no plan, but she ignores the facts and the evidence of a very obvious long plan. A plan that started when she began, this defendant, Lori Vallow, meddling in Melanie and Brandon's marriage. And when that marriage was finally ending, this defendant continued to help her niece, Melanie. She continued to aid her. And what we see in every one of these bits of evidence is a core group of people. This defendant, her brother Alex, Melanie Boudreaux, and Chad Daybell. The four of them working together. Do we need to have words, a video? No, we do not. That is why there is that jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence, because you look at what is going on here, and it screams to you a conspiracy by this defendant, by Melanie Boudreaux, by Alex Cox, and by Chad Daybell to kill Brandon Boudreaux. Every action you see there, the defendant would like you to look at them individually and pretend that they don't all point to what happened on October 2nd. But everything they did leading up to then shows you a way to cover up and prepare for the murder of Brandon Boudreaux. When we talk about a plan and this defendant's actions, the most obvious and screaming piece of information is this defendant holding on to her brother's phone for days, holding on to the 480-351-9120 number for days while her brother is gone, with her Jeep, without the rear tire, without the back seat, with a gun with him. That is part of the plan. That is the assisting, that is the promoting, that is the conspiracy that this defendant wants you to pretend doesn't exist. We don't need words. We have actions that are obvious, and they're done by this defendant and her co-conspirators. The state asks you to look at everything together, regardless of how many people want to cry up here, regardless of how many people want to try to testify. This is not evidence. What is evidence is what was presented to you in trial, and each piece of that tells you this defendant is guilty. And so I ask you to find her guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder against Brandon Boudreaux. Thank you.
Good work.
Boom.
I have really liked her. I think Prosecutor
Me
Kay
too.
is fantastic. You know,
She's
in the
great.
Rexburg trial, they had a huge team of prosecutors. They brought in a special prosecutor from out of state. Trina's been on her own. Her
Yeah.
and a paralegal. She's done this
Yeah.
herself, and I think she's done a
And she's
fantastic job.
done very
Thank you
well.
so much,
Yeah.
Kelly, for the super chat. That is so sweet. Super chat is on. We appreciate it a lot, you guys.
hmm
Some questions that came up in the chat that I wanted to address. Can Lori at some point write a book or, do something? She cannot benefit financially from her crimes. That's the law. So, I mean, she could, but she couldn't get paid for it.
Well, and Idaho won't even let her be interviewed. Arizona has let her be interviewed,
Right.
but Idaho won't let her.
No.
So she's getting whatever she can get out of being in Arizona before she comes back to prison in Idaho. Because after she's sentenced, that's the plan, is that she will be transported back here to the Pocatello Women's Prison, and she'll spend the rest of her life there.
Lori, I think, has had her last Dancing with the Stars tryout and has landed flat on her ass.
She definitely has. Thank you, Joelle. Thank you, Tall Red. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Yeah. I don't even know what to say to that, honestly. I was glad for the thank you, Teresa. I was really glad for all of the objections. They were well placed. I mean, what the hell was that? That wasn't a closing?
No, that was her getting her opportunity to testify without getting cross-examined.
Right.
That's what that was.
If you wanted to testify, Lori, you should have testified.
Yeah. But you know how she is. She's going to sneak something in everywhere.
Been great. Yeah.
She did stipulate to the aggravators, yes.
Well, she's going
She
to.
did.
Yeah.
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 She did tell the judge that she would.
Yep. Because she, if you've been following the case, you know that before this trial started, she tried hard to argue with the judge about the aggravators phase and about how, hey, thank you, Sherry, about how she doesn't think that that's okay to do. And, that she's basically trying to argue Arizona state law. And the judge is like, I don't know what to tell you.
This is how it is.
And it is kind of dumb. To Lori's credit, I can't believe I'm saying that. It is kind of dumb because the sentence that she's going to get would be life in prison with or without the mitigating factors. So it's kind of silly, but it is the way they do it. And so, they're just following the law. They have to do it that way. But thank you, Sally. She, it's kind of stupid, but it is what it is. And the judge can't do anything different. Thank you, GSI. Yeah. Yes, she can write letters to Chad. That was something that came up with the prosecutors in Idaho a while back, was that there is no order in place saying that they can't talk to each other. So yes, they could. Are they? We have no idea. There are some people that really believe that Emma is still facilitating contact between the two of them. And so it could be that she's kind of the go-between. We don't really know.
We don't really know.
Yeah.
She still doesn't really understand what the aggravators are. She seems to think that she's being charged with something else, but she isn't. It's just, so was this in fact a conspiracy? Was there danger involved? This attempt, could it have in fact killed Brandon? Yes, it could. A lot of times aggravators had to do with firearms. Was there a firearm used? There are a bunch of them. She qualifies for all of them. Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter because these are it's just another life sentence at this point.
Yeah.
I have to say that going into the lunch break, I was a little worried because it is a very circumstantial case.
Hoping that Balance would have had more. I hoped he had more.
I had hoped he'd had more actual direct communication. But I do feel really good now about the way that Prosecutor Kay connected everything up and timelined it out. And that's what's so important. The information's all there. They've proven their case. They've proven the conspiracy. It's all there. It's just, did they make it palatable for the jury so they can understand what the hell they're talking about?
Yeah.
And I think Kay did.
I think she did too. I thought she did great. Yep. So what happens now? Well, the jury went into deliberations for about 15 minutes. Top to bottom, it looked like 18 minutes, but I think by the time they got in there, they came out, the message were sent. I'm going to say 15. 15 minutes. So, they probably deliberated just long enough to establish a chairperson or foreperson, as well as give each other, maybe their preliminary thought. Maybe they did a preliminary poll. Maybe they didn't. Then they went home. I think they'd all had enough today, needed to process, needed to digest.
And they've got to go back through all the evidence, and like there's a lot for them to do. So it made sense to me to just start fresh in the morning.
Yep. So they're going to start at 10 tomorrow. That'll be 11 hour time. We will start streaming, and it'll just be a blank courtroom. But we'll start our stream as soon as the pool stream starts, which will be, again, 11 our time, I believe. There's not a 30-minute delay. There will be a 5-minute delay on verdict. The judge told them, everybody, he wants them within 20 to 25 minutes of the courthouse tomorrow. So this is going to go fast. When the verdict comes in, the judge is like, I am done with this shit.
Yeah.
Verdict comes in, we're reading it. So be here. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll be in the stream with you guys. When the verdict comes in, we'll be ready to roll. And of course, that's on our True Crime Squad Trials channel. Not this one, because YouTube
will be over there.
Some of you are asking if Brandon could bring civil charges against Melanie. Technically, yes, he could. He won't. Brandon has tried really hard to maintain a mother for his children's mother. He's remarried. Brandon has moved on just fine. Brandon is doing well. Brandon, I think, is an amazing guy and has done right by his kids, but he has been devastated about his kids not having their mother in their lives. He's bent over backwards for Melanie, I think, in a lot of ways. So could he sue her? Yeah. Will he? It'll never happen.
But anything she has, she got from him.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. Melanie didn't have anything.
No, he was the one with the money in their relationship, and she did get some money in their divorce, but
yeah. But Melanie didn't start with anything. Her life came from Brandon. Yeah. So that's what we've got. Kind of went down exactly the way we thought it would today. Right. Karen Reed is ready for closing too. They're off tomorrow, and then on Friday they have closing arguments, and then the jury will start deliberating. Whew, that's a shit show. I'm honestly so glad we're not covering it.
Me too.
You guys think about this. Karen Reed started the same time Lori's first trial started in Arizona.
Yeah.
And they're headed to the jury room at almost exactly the same time. For two trials versus one. And a break in between.
Oh, Sandy, seriously.
Now, if Lori is found guilty, thank you, GSI. If Lori is found guilty, then of course it sounds like she's going to stipulate to the aggravation phase. Sentencing will be done by this judge, and it will probably be in about a month. It sounded like they wanted to combine both sentencings together.
Yes.
And when they do that, it's supposed to take about a month, but because they're combining, I wondered if it would take a little bit more time. We don't know. I would say sometime in July we'll see sentencing to the first part of August, something like that.
That's what I would think too.
Yep. Courtney said the storage video is the smoking gun and her Googling on her phone how to remove seats from a Jeep. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Those things and her direct involvement in them, and you didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. Okay, sure. And it was her vehicle that he drove, and that he went and paid $200 to tint an already tinted Jeep that belonged to her.
Yeah. Yep. That tinting the back window was a weird choice too, just in general. But also the Googling of Brandon Boudreaux shootings in Gilbert, Arizona, I thought that was extremely telling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. Thank you, Eternity.
No, Brandon and Melanie have shared custody of their children. Melanie has not lost custody of her kids over this.
She did for a little bit.
She did for a little bit, but not now.
Yep. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, no, it did come down on her for a little while, but after the shooting, he and the kids actually went into hiding for a while. And you have to believe that he saved his own life and his kids' by doing that, because some of his kids were on the dark list.
Yes.
Children, little children.
Just his little kids. Yeah.
Yep.
Disgusting.
These people are insane. And then I always have to ask myself at times like this, who was next?
I know.
Who was
Because
next?
we know from Charles's trial that there was a list of 24.
Yeah.
Who was next on that list, man?
Who was next on that list?
Were they going to try against Brandon again? I mean, they
Right.
tried on Tammy twice,
Mm-hmm.
before they killed her the second time and had a missed attempt the first time.
Also, if they were successful with Brandon, would Melanie have been next?
Right.
Because Lori didn't want Melanie. She wanted Melanie's money.
Right.
Which was
right.
Brandon's money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, we get money on our super stickers. Yeah, Marta. We do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. YouTube gets some of it too, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's YouTube's routine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I saw a question I wanted to answer. Oh, do I think Melanie will get charges? Before this trial, I would have said no. Now I'm not so sure.
I doubt it. Here's my thinking. They wanted to tell the jury that there was still an active investigation into Melanie during this trial.
Sure.
Because that lended credibility to the whole thing. I think if they were going to charge her, they would have by now. Really. It's been almost 6 years.
You're probably right. Yeah. Yeah.
But they didn't want to say, they wanted to say this investigation is still active against her all the way up through this trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because her involvement with Lori and with Alex, it just further proved the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marta.
Oh, thank you, Marta.
Yeah. So we'll see on Melanie. It would be wild. It would be super wild if we saw charges for her.
It would.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact, and Prosecutor Kay said that there were still investigations into Melanie on multiple cases.
Yes, multiple cases.
Which I thought was interesting.
Also, in her final closing, I absolutely loved that she brought up the fact that there were multiple investigations into Lori at the time.
Yes.
That was as close as she could get to telling the jury she's a murderer from Murdersville. It was the closest she could get to saying that. And I was so happy that she did, at least to say that. So the jury remembers, wait a minute, this isn't as innocent a lady as you think, right? She's up here doing the Relief Society president routine. And I thought I was really glad that she said that so that they keep that in their head a little bit. There's been other incidences. There was the incident in July that she's been investigated for multiple crimes. Like, this lady's not as innocent as she's coming across.
Yeah. We can't tell you everything, but we're going to tell you as much as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. Some of you guys have been with us for, 5 years on this case. Yeah. And some of you are new, and we appreciate you too. But yeah, some of you guys have been here forever. Really appreciate you guys.
All of you very much.
This has been wild. So now, obviously, I think we'll have a verdict tomorrow. I would be really surprised if we didn't. We do have a poll over on Discord. I put a link in the chat room for it. I will say that 58% of you think that the jury will be out for 4 hours-ish. 25% of you think 2 hours. And the rest of you think probably 6 hours. So I think we're all kind of on the same team that this probably isn't going to take that long. But if you want to participate in the Discord poll, I'm putting the link up again right now, but you can also just find it if you go to truecrimesquad.com, and there's a link there to join our Discord, and you'll see it there in the Vallow Daybell section. So that's the way to find that. So let's say that the jury comes back tomorrow. They come back with a guilty or not guilty or hung or whatever they say. They won't hang tomorrow, obviously, but let's say they come back with a guilty verdict, because that's what I would like to see. They come back with a guilty verdict. Then things are going to settle down for a minute. We might have a break from Lori. We should for a little while. We won't. We'll come back next week with Lori's appeal in Idaho.
Yep.
So we'll break that down.
Through that with you.
It is a 64-page long behemoth, and no wonder they had to keep asking for extensions of time to follow it or to file it. It took them gosh, more than a year longer than it was supposed to. But
Yeah.
the appellate attorneys in Idaho are so underwater that they're having a really hard time getting through everything. Idaho
Yeah.
has a serious shortage of lawyers, and unfortunately, the ones who work primarily for the state are quite underpaid.
Yes.
So they're
Yes, they are.
doing the best they can, but some of you have been a little bit concerned about that. I have glanced through it. I haven't fully read it. Don't worry. Very typical stuff, but we'll get on with it. So
Yeah.
we'll do that next week, and then we'll start talking about some other cases. Yes, Corey Richens is moving forward now. Corey Richens lost her appeal to the Supreme Court in Utah, so her trial is moving forward, and it should be commencing fairly soon. It should have already happened, but then they got that stay, so that's coming up. Of course, Brian Koberger is coming up in August. We're going to be on that one as well,
Oh,
of
man,
course.
that's going to be a biggie.
That's a behemoth as well, yes. And of course, it's another Idaho case, so we have been covering that one from the get-go as well. We haven't covered it the way other people have. You guys have probably noticed that. When Koberger started, it immediately became a media circus. It became a podcaster circus that we didn't like. It just got really, really gross really fast with a lot of misinformation, a lot of poor behavior. I'm not saying we're perfect. We're certainly not. But we didn't like what we were seeing, and we took a pretty big step back.
Just a lot of misinformation, a lot of just conjecture and guessing. It's still going on. All kinds of shit that I'm like, it's just being made up.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do that.
No.
But we will certainly be covering that trial.
Yeah. And we do have eyes in the courtroom for that. We have a friend that's a reporter that's covering that. So we'll have good support in covering Koberger. So we'll be all over that.
Sorry. Gosh, can you see had a long day?
Yeah. Donna Adelson will be going to trial shortly as well. We're all over that one. And also
Gardner.
Shanna Gardner Fernandez and her husband, they will be going to trial shortly as well, and we're also covering that one. If you're not familiar with that case, she's another Mormon woman, and you may or may not know this about us, but we're former Mormons, and we like to cover Mormon crime, and because we understand some things about it that sometimes you guys don't know, and we can kind of help explain. It's one of the big reasons that we have covered this case so in depth.
Yeah.
But Shanna Gardner, she's an heiress to the Stampin' It Up wealth of people who have a huge scrapbooking type company out of Utah and Washington. And so we're covering that one. Did Stampin' Up change their name? They may have. I think they went through something. Yeah. Nick Alaverdian. Yeah, that one's coming right up. Both of his trials are coming up. I'm not sure what to say about those. I would really like to take a road trip to Utah and at least sit through a day or two of his stuff. I don't know if we will. Utah, and it will be hot in summer, and I don't know. We'll have to see if we feel good enough to do that. But I don't know how far it's going to be covered because there was an order there that none of the testimony of the victims would be televised, which is very fair. These are sexual assault cases.
Yeah, most definitely.
So we'll cover it the best we can. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Any of our Utah friends, if you're going to go to any of it, please let us know. I would love to know. Amber, are you going to go? Amber said she'll buy our lunch. Okay, well, Amber, we're coming.
Or we might just love to get some intel from you if you do go.
Yeah, if you go. We'll see on that one. And then the other one that's coming up in October, I believe still is James Craig. And James Craig is the dentist, the Mormon dentist in Colorado that allegedly poisoned his wife with the protein shakes. Yes. Remember that fool? And keeping a close eye on that one too. He's been in all kinds of trouble earlier this spring for, in his words, trying to get another inmate to hire some hotties. Good God, James, grow up. To provide some false testimony. Kind of fell flat. So
curious as to why it needed to be hotties providing false testimony.
Right? What's wrong with you, James?
Just because he's gross.
A bunch of things.
Stupid. Yeah.
But those are some of the big cases for us that are coming up that we're going to be covering more in depth. That's what's happening. I also was looking at little Bobby Tellez because he has an appeal coming up and he is representing himself. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, if we'll see him in court at all. But if he is, we'll be on it.
It's worth a watch if we do get to see him in court, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Put on your sunglasses.
Jae Won Young, she is a reporter in Las Vegas. She has covered him really well. And we keep a close eye on what she's doing because she's done an awesome job with it. And anytime we can see that jackass in court is a good day. So
it is.
And maybe a bad one, but right, not little
good
Bobby
and a
again.
bad, but I mean, it's pretty excellent entertainment. We do know that.
And hopefully tomorrow, I'm really optimistic here, but hopefully tomorrow after sentencing, we'll have a song that just wraps up this whole trial for Lori.
Well, I'm hoping. Does that mean you're writing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on it. I've been thinking about it.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Little Bobby Tay is with or without the lifts. That's a fair question.
Without now, because he is convicted. He does not get to use them now. So we'll see a whole different level of him.
But he tossed his he tossed his attorney, which was news to his attorney because his attorney tossed himself.
His attorney was like, new phone, who dis? Yeah.
He's in court saying that he has lost all faith in his attorney. And his attorney's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not your attorney.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The YouTuber feud shooting in Vegas over the weekend. I have heard about it, Rosanna, and hopefully we'll cover it next week. A lot going on. Also, Travis Decker, the man in Washington that allegedly killed his 3 little girls that's on the run. He has still not been found.
No, but they do have some lines on. They think he's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of everyone's been like, did he just go off into the woods and take care of himself? Yeah. Sounds like maybe not, which, wow.
Yeah.
Also we've got a dumb bank rob story. I can't wait. I love these dumb bank robber
hilarious bank robber story that happened in Idaho.
You, and it's local. No, it happened here. Did it happen here? Yeah, here in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, it happened in Idaho Falls. Yeah, we have a lot
I can't
coming.
Wait to share. It's good. It's hilarious.
And yes, the Ozark Devil got caught. Thank God.
I am so glad they caught that fool. Oh.
Scary dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go out tonight with a song. We're going to listen. You've already heard it. Maybe you have. Maybe you haven't. But this is the song we wrote earlier this week about Lori and all of her attempts to throw out the judge. And since she's tried again, I think it's well suited to just play it one more time. So we'll see you on the stream tomorrow. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, we'll do a wrap-up tomorrow night at 6:30 per normal for trial coverage. So that is what's coming. Miles, I am with you 110%. Yes. All right, here we go.
Your Honor, I just can't proceed. This courtroom's a nightmare, you're not meeting my needs. I demand a new judge, this just isn't fair. You don't worship my aura or compliment my hair. You don't giggle when I wink, you don't swoon when I cry. You roll your eyes every time I lie. You won't let me preach about portals and flames. You keep using these, what do you call them, facts and names. He doesn't do what I tell him to. He's immune to my stare and my courtroom voodoo. He doesn't think I'm pretty or divine from above. And worst of all, my shiny golden vagina doesn't work on him. That used to get me anything I want with a grin. I mean, Chad thinks I'm a literal goddess, a warrior queen. But Boreski? He just keeps asking about evidence and charging documents. So rude. He doesn't let me call zombies to the stand. He won't high-five me when I crush the prosecution's plan. I filed a motion from my prison jail cell, but he said, ma'am, with the law your words don't land. He said my vibes were irrelevant. Can you believe he even made me wear this shock belt thing? So I object, recuse, remove, withdraw. I demand a judge who respects law He's not impressed by my spiritual whims, and my shiny golden vagina doesn't work on him. So give me a judge who will bow to my glow, or at least let me run this damn show. Until then I'll pow, plot, and scheme, 'cause Lori's justice runs on delusion and dream. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go file another 3-7 handwritten motions.
Good night, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Season 6, we're back again. Kristi and Katie, your crime time friends. Stories, justice, laughs collide. True Crime Squad, come join the ride. Grab the clues, let's take a stand. For victims' voices, hand in hand. True Crime Squad, it's time to shine. Season 6, your turn, your time. True Crime Squad, where justice meets hilarity.